But hey, everybody, welcome to the one about Godzilla movies. You thought I was going to say more, didn't you?
Ha
I just thought
ha
I'd beat you to the
ha
punch and then see how you
ha
react.
ha ha. I mean, this is your show, dude. Again,
Is it?
I
If
only
you say
came up
so.
with it and do all the editing, but it's your show.
Right. Oh my god.
Uh, yeah, this is the one about Godzilla movies. Welcome back to another episode number 9.
So close to 10.
So close, and yet exactly how far away we need to be. Um, Today's episode, we are talking about Godzilla Minus One. It is
Hmm.
the newest release from Toho, and it was the film that officially kicked off the 70th anniversary of Godzilla. So
Today is a momentous day.
momentous, absolutely.
I almost wish this was the 10th episode. It would feel like it would just make more sense to me.
Dang
But,
it! Do we need to
it is what it is. Nope. Nope.
math?
This is episode 9.
This is episode 9.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Do we need some backstory on this? I mean, like, we were trying to decide what movies to watch when, but we've been waiting to watch this movie for a long time. Like, you've been talking about it the whole time we've been doing this podcast, and I've been waiting patiently to see it for multiple reasons. One is
Yeah.
that you said we had to wait, and we decided to finish the MonsterVerse first, which makes sense. And the other reason is that until a few weeks ago, it hadn't released. It wasn't available to watch at
Either
home.
in Japan or here
Yeah,
in good old cheeseburger bang bang America.
that's true. So, like, from my understanding, movies in the Japanese cinema are in the theaters for a long time, maybe almost as much as 6 months sometimes. And then it seems like it takes a long time before they release it digitally as well. So, really, as of this recording, I think Blu-ray is like the only format it's been released in. So they're old school over there.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Well,
missed it
and
in
I
the theater. I know
remember,
some people who saw it, but
yeah, it had a short run in theaters because of a contract that they have with Legendary and like not competing with them. So like they had to get it out of theaters before Godzilla X Kong came out. At least in America, which is kind of weird, but
yeah,
I feel like it may have had a little bit of a longer run here in America if that wasn't a thing because it was doing so well and they decided to do it in black and white and that, whatever.
for the second run,
Yeah, for the second run, it was just kind of we've extended the run and here we go,
right?
yeah. So, before we really jump in too much, I just want to point out you can see longer, I almost said ad-free, but cut-free, like just longer, largely unedited versions of this episode. Brian and I are tangent-prone. There's almost always something before the show, sometimes a little bit after, and we're working on bonus content too. You can find all of that on Patreon. It's patreon.com/the one about Godzilla movies. It's $5 a month, and yeah, we'd love you if you did that. Anyways, you can
Sick.
find us on the one about Godzilla movies, YouTube, your podcast player, whatever. You found us, you're listening already.
Totally.
Yeah, dude, I don't have any of my normal things ready for this film because that's what my life has been today. So why don't we just kind of
I have so much.
Yeah, dude, you jump in. I'll get some
Yeah,
bits together while you talk, and no one will know because Kayla will cut that
yeah,
out.
nice. Yeah, get your bits together. Title.
Nice.
We can't use that. Um, oh man, I'm so excited about
Computers.
this. So,
Bits.
spoiler alert. Actually, for real, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this movie, you should pause this episode and you should go watch it right now.
I think
I
it's
don't
the only
care.
one that,
I don't care if you're on the highway. Pull it up. Like, no, don't do that. What you should watch
but
it at
just
home at
don't.
least.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the only Godzilla movie that I'm going to highly recommend that you watch before you listen to this because. Anyways, proceed.
Yeah, I agree.
The other ones, I mean, if you want to be, if you want to treat it like the Flophouse and whatever,
Or like those pitch meeting videos. I'm sure lots of people watch those for like movies they've never seen.
yeah,
Honestly, it's kind of fun to watch one for a movie that you have been hearing is bad and you probably are never going to watch. It's just fun to see the pitch meeting. You kind of learn all you need to know about the movie.
I'm going to start doing that. That's a great idea.
Case in point, Argyle.
Ooh,
Although
writing that down.
If you want to sit down with a friend or a significant other or whatever and watch a movie that you know is bad for the strict purpose of making fun of it the whole time and being lost in your own incredulity. Incredulity. Is that a word? That's not the word. Words are hard.
Close enough.
Yeah, you will be incredulous at how ridiculous bad that movie is. It's a good one to do that too. And the pitch meeting is great. That was a tangent. What was I saying? Oh yeah, spoiler alerts. So yeah, you should go watch Godzilla Minus One, even if you haven't seen
the
it.
spoiler horn right there.
Even if you, what is it? An air horn?
To be determined.
To be determined. In the editing room, we have a huge crew here in our editing room. It's working day and night to make these episodes really great.
And there they are.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Caleb, those are the voices in your head. Okay, anyways.
All the things you said, all your things you said running through my head.
I just had like 4 thoughts in my head and I forgot all of them.
Oh, but I'm the one with voices. Title.
I know you hit the bell because I saw your hand, but I can't hear it because of your audio. It's so sad. Okay, so this movie's really great, and as we've said multiple times now, you should go watch it. You should maybe also consider watching the original Godzilla movie, because that one is also great, and also because this one pulls a lot of inspiration, and there's a lot of homages to it. They're very directly linked. There's a real legacy there. But yeah, you don't have to do what you want. You're an adult, or maybe you're not an adult. Do what you want. This movie is great. I've actually, Caleb, how many times have you seen this movie total?
Now it is 8. I've seen it 3 times.
How many in the theater?
Since 5. I saw it.
Holy cow.
3 times in color and twice in black and white.
Wow. That's a lot. I think I've only seen a movie. One time I think I saw a movie 3 times in the theater. And I don't remember what it was, but I could look it up later. But that feels like a lot to me. 3. In the theater, that is.
I admit,
Yeah.
like 5, like that
Wow.
is the most I've seen any movie in a theater. I've seen, there are multiple movies that I've seen multiple times, but that is, it was that compelling. And
But to be fair, I'm pretty sad that I did not see it in the theater. Having seen it here at home, like, oh my gosh, it would have been so cool to experience that.
In Dolby Atmos, it was.
Oh, yes.
It was pretty great.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so if you haven't picked up on it already, this movie is a color film, but they did a recolor grading of this film in black and white and sort of did another run of it. And, they have both versions on Blu-ray. You can watch it in color or you can watch it in black and white. And
the aptly titled Godzilla Minus One minus color.
That is the edition name. Yep. And I guess it's a trivia item, but they didn't just hit options black and white or something. They actually went through the entire film, from my understanding, and they actually used masking, if you know what that is, to basically selectively different parts of the frame in the image, kind of change the contrast in certain areas. Kind of like they literally went through and kind of treated it like they were color grading the film from scratch, but in black and white. And
Yeah.
most of that is because in the old days of black and white, the look of that, probably the film stock, it was a very kind of a high contrast look. A lot of old black and white movies are kind of high contrast, and that's kind of the look. Whereas like our modern technologies, especially things shot digitally, the contrast just isn't as high. There's more color depth. And so they went through, and I can tell that they really kind of upped the contrast in a lot of areas of the image in black and white, which definitely made it look more like a film from 1954, for instance. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the reason I've seen it twice. Actually, I watched in color in 4K. It was amazing. I have comments about that look, and then I saw it again in black and white, and kind of wrote a second review with like some additional thoughts on just the black and white aspect of it, and really liked it in black and white even more than the color. But it's hard to choose. There's pros and cons to both. So the bulk of like
Advantages.
my notes and like my main notes in my review and everything are kind of from the color version, and then I kind of have like a second round of thoughts from the second time that I watched it. So, oh my gosh, this movie's so cool. Should I get into it?
Start at the top. We get in.
Yeah.
That shot, dude. The opening shot from the wing of the plane, just like.
Yeah, just plane coming into Oda Island, as it's called in this film, which I don't think is intended to be the same place necessarily, but it is a fictional island. It's not a real island. It's called Oda Island. There is an island in the original movie called Oda Island that some things happen on. I don't remember if it's the one where they first see Godzilla in the original movie. That might be Oda Island. I think it is. In this movie, it's basically like sort of like an air base with some mechanics who work on planes. This movie is set, I think, pretty much right at the end of World War II. So it's actually set earlier than the original movie is set. So this is like hot off the tail of sort of like the bombings at the end of World War II. It's very much like a 40s era. Wow. Some things I liked. There's this whole scene at the beginning where Godzilla attacks these dudes on the island. And I think they captured, I wrote down abject terror. Like,
yeah,
just the
absolutely.
terror on these dudes' faces. I think one of them kind of calls out, it's Gojira, the locals call it, blah, 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 like a little factoid. But there's kind of this concept that the guys there don't really know what this thing is or where it came from. And just like this one guy who's there kind of is like relaying that he'd heard about this thing and that like the locals there call it Gojira. So they're scared out of their minds. Broad strokes, things I liked. The color grading, this would be the color version, of course. The color grading was just really interesting. It looked, I actually haven't seen it yet, but it looks like some of the still frames that I saw from Peter Jackson's World War I restored footage. And what is it called? I want to say it's They Will Not Grow Old or something like that.
Yeah, it is called that.
Is that?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, some of the color grading in this film almost looks like colorized black and white footage or something like that.
Yeah.
Almost. Like, it's definitely a desaturated look. It's not like it's not a colorful film at all. Like a lot of the shadows and midtones are kind of all like browns and greens. It's just like a lot of browns and greens.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of like what the film looks like. And to me, that kind of looks like the photos that I see from World War I and II, maybe more so World War II. Like that, it immediately kind of invoked that sense of historical pictures from that time period. So I really like that. I think without necessarily needing to tell the audience what year the film is set in or what time period is, it kind of communicates that visually without even having to say it in words.
Yeah. Yep.
You just kind of pick up on that without realizing you're picking up on it. It just kind of feels like it's from that time period. Yeah, I wrote down, this is funny, knowing some of the trivia I've looked at now, but I wrote down small focused sets. I could tell just like a lot of really small hand-built sets, character writing, conversations, just like a real focus on like dialogue and just like sitting in a room or just outside a small house, just conversations, meaningful conversations, but
Yeah.
not big scale, top down cityscape, like none of this stuff. Just very, really small, just really focused on the character itself. I also wrote down human storytelling. Big part of this movie is it's a human story. This is also from the trivia, but Godzilla is in 9% of this film. I think that's great.
Yeah.
You get to build up anticipation, like there's things going on, but the story that's being told, it's not really about monsters fighting or something. It's about, oh my gosh, what do we do? I guess this is also a trivia item, but the reason this movie is called Godzilla Minus One is sort of symbolically this idea that Japan was leveled to zero at the end of World War II from the bombings.
Yep.
And so this concept is, wow, we just got leveled by these bombs. We lost. We're back to like square zero, like rebuilding. And now we have Godzilla taking us down another notch to -1. Like that's kind of the idea of like,
yeah,
we already thought we were at our
at the
lowest.
bottom. Yeah,
and now we also have this to deal with. That's kind of the vibe of the movie of like, do we give up? What can we do against this? There's no like real military forces that are able to deal with this. Part of that's historical, from my understanding. Japan wasn't allowed to have a military after World War II.
Yeah, for a long time.
Because of the U.S. like keeping an eye on the stuff that went down, Pearl Harbor and stuff. So they kind of like use that historical fact in this film. Like there isn't a military that can deal with this problem of Godzilla, and so like later on in the film, like they kind of have to get some people who fought in the war together as citizens to kind of deal with the problem. But there's no like official like governmental task force or anything. It's like very unofficial, grassroots kind of that thing, which is kind of cool. They have some resources, but it kind of feels like an underdog story almost. Yeah. Anyways, the story of this film, human storytelling. I wrote down Godzilla PTSD. It actually goes deeper than that. Our main character, he is dealing with Godzilla PTSD. They do show at least one like nightmare in the film. It's sort of like implied that he's wrestling with PTSD from this encounter on the island.
That, I don't think it was implied. That was like kind of twice, actually. Well, multiple times in the film, but especially that first one, because he has that dream where he thinks he's woken up in his house now, and he opens the door and he's back on Oda Island, and it's when everybody then is dying again. And then that's right. So like the what's her face brings him tea. Yep. And he starts talking about it, and he's like, maybe I'm dead. Maybe I'm just on the beach there, rotting away. Yeah. And like,
he kind of snaps a little bit.
Yeah. He's like, and you're just the dream. You and the baby are just like, the dream of.
He's like, you're not real, man.
Right. Yeah. And she's just like, I think her response to that
title. Sorry.
You're not real. Um, her response to that is just
Yeah.
like, she just holds him, and like you have, like, you can feel it. You know you're alive. You know you're here. You can't you feel it, kind of thing. Just yeah, that yeah,
Hmm.
got to me. It was really good. I
Yep.
cried a lot in this movie. I
Yeah.
cried like 4 or 5 times, I think. Yeah, the
Mm.
first time I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely real. I mean, I haven't seen as many war-based movies as some people have. Um, but I don't know if like PTSD is like explored a ton in the cinema. It's kind of a heavy subject. So I just thought it was really interesting to sort of kind of get in the viewpoint of not only like a former soldier who has PTSD from the war, but like his experience was unique, and that his like war experience, like he has PTSD not just like from what happened to him, but that sort of like this Venn diagram overlap of like his service experience being also this traumatic encounter with this giant creature. So that's kind of interesting, I think.
Well,
Just I don't know, super original idea.
yeah, super original idea. I think maybe the key thing that you're missing there, though, is the fact that he was kamikaze and
That too.
didn't do it,
Hmm.
and all of that like shame that he's living with, and like that cultural shame. Like, it's discussed. I mean, it's brought up right away. He shows back up in his hometown, and that lady is there. Is like, "What are you? You're here? How did
You're not
like
supposed to be here.
yeah, you come
Shame
back
on
and show
you.
your face, and exactly, and just like that is a yeah, another part of that PTSD is just like he shouldn't even be here at all, and now he's like living through this, you know.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So he ends up. I don't know. Should we even like talk about the story? Well, I mean, if you're listening to this, you've seen the movie.
We gave the
Wink.
spoiler. We
We
gave
did.
the spoiler
No,
horn.
I just
It's
like I don't know
all
if I need
bets
to
are
like
off.
summarize the plot, but later on, he's on this little fishing boat sailing ship, got a little crew together, got himself a job, worked for the government. They're like cleaning up mines, and this is kind of like their first encounter with Godzilla out
Dude,
there.
how Jaws was that whole thing? It
Oh my
felt
god, dude!
so great.
The literally, it. I have like the next point I was literally just about to say is Jaws question mark. It's literally what I wrote down, and then
Yeah.
of course you said it. I was like, "This is literally Jaws." Like, um, I mean, without like the musical theme, of course, but this idea of like you're in the middle of like the ocean, you're on this small boat, just like a couple people, and there's like this monstrous thing.
You're gonna need a bigger boat, boys. You're in trouble.
So yeah, and I guess he figures out that it's Godzilla, um, and big surprise, it's much bigger than last time we saw it. So their encounter on the island, I mean, Godzilla was like maybe T-Rex sized, not very big. And then at some point in the film, they show like sort of like almost like stock footagey stuff of like nuclear tests. It's sort of like a news bulletin kind of a thing, sort of
Yeah.
telling the audience, hey, like this thing happened off screen, which is that there is like some sort of nuclear testing, and it's implied that that affected Godzilla. They have like a brief shot of like, I don't know, like his skin underwater or something.
I wanna talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
That to me felt like a little like the way his eye looked and stuff. There's just that whole shot reminded me of Godzilla 1998, the terrible
Really?
one with Matthew Broderick. For some reason, just like
Interesting.
not in like a bad way, but it just was like I don't know. It looked kind of like that Godzilla for like 2 seconds to me, and
It's like the close up of the eye.
yeah, and I still think that after what have I seen it now 7 times?
Oh my god. Yeah, so like that scene, not only was it cool, but it kind of told the audience two things. One, it's like implying that, hey, there's nuclear testing and it's affecting Godzilla. Anyone who's familiar with the franchise knows that means he gets bigger and stronger. But
Yeah,
more
I'm glad they didn't
specifically,
feel the need to spend more time on that. Like,
yeah, people kind of know what it is. But more importantly, they kind of show like the skin healing thing, sort of like the regenerative
Yeah,
response to like an explosion. You
that
kind
was
of like
so cool.
see like the skin like sort of building back up in real time, almost like Wolverine or something. But like,
Hmm.
but it's not like restore back to zero. It's like it like restores back to like this new like
Kind of
Gothmog looking kind of a
scarred,
thing.
like, yeah, yep.
Yeah, Gothmog being like the Lord of the Orcs and Return of the King, Lord of the Rings. If you
Oh,
haven't
okay,
seen
yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
was
yeah.
literally what I'm picturing. Like that's kind of like almost the texture of his skin, except he's not
I think
Caucasian
this is,
colored.
yeah, for real.
We'll just say I don't have any issues finding my car in a parking lot, so it's a life hack. Mm,
And for those of you that aren't watching the Patreon, that was a really great segment about your car and Bader Meinhof. And what were we talking about?
yeah, I guess.
His eye, and then we were moving to,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
just like a brief shot, but it was kind of like setting up that
Oh
you
yeah,
know
because then this is the
Godzilla's going
first
to
time
come
we see
back and
him.
he's
Yeah,
going to be bigger and stuff. Anyways, we do see him. Sure enough, he's absolutely massive. We didn't even see his head at first. We just get we're presented with like a just like kind of like the fins in the water. You get like an idea of how big he is and stuff. So they're like in this. I'm going to call it a fishing boat. I don't remember. It's a wooden boat. Little guy, and they're trying to figure out how do we run away from this thing. And there's just talk of like this naval ship that is supposed to be showing up to the region in the near future, but it hasn't arrived yet. And they're like, we're screwed. And they kind of have like these mines on board, and they're trying to figure out maybe we can weaponize these. Anyways, it was like a very like Jaws kind of a thing where even like they're like dropping the mine and then like trying to shoot it. I'm like, oh my god, this is Jaws.
yeah. That is such a
They're
cool,
trying to drop the
cool shot.
explosion and then shoot it from a distance to hurt the thing, and which I'm pretty sure in Jaws kills Jaws. Doesn't work in this film. It does kind of like show maybe a weak spot or like something that they can take a look at later on, but it does not take him out. The movie's not over at that point. So, oh yeah, the battleship does show up, and then Godzilla just freaking destroys it. Well, he attacks it first physically. You kind of get to see him like swim under it, and you see how massive he is. And then he
Yeah,
attacks it,
and then just,
and then you get to see like this glow from under the ship, and like you kind of know what that is if you know anything about Godzilla. But and then, dude, freaking nukes the ship from below.
yeah,
Like it's going to be
abs
the
just
breath. You think maybe it's going to like I don't know. Maybe there will be an explosion, or maybe it'll like cut it in half or something.
yeah, exactly. Like the ship's
I
gonna
would have
break in
expected
half,
like
whatever.
yeah, the ship is cut. No, they just freaking threw a nuke on that boy. Boom, mushroom cloud. So unexpected, so
Yeah,
cool. And
yeah,
not only did they sort of like show a device they were going to use throughout the film of like this super overpowered breath that results in a nuke, but they also didn't show the lead up of like what was happening with Godzilla because he's like underwater under the ship. They didn't show it,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
they
yeah. The
they did
charge
save
up.
that for later. That was really smart.
Uh-huh.
You gotta build the anticipation. So that was sick. Yeah, I wrote down 1954 music theme. What I meant, uh, what I meant was like the main theme. I'm trying to sing it
The
now.
da 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 da
No,
da
that's
da
the
da
battle
da da
theme.
da da da.
Um,
Oh,
that I actually,
bum 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 bum
yep.
bum
So at this point, this is
bum
like his attack
bum
on the
bum.
city, and Ginsu, I forget the city name. Um,
Oh, Ginza, isn't it?
Ginza, I think that's how it's spelled. At this point in my notes, that's what that note is from. I remember just like noticing the theme, and I was like, "Oh, they're doing the theme." At that point in time, I didn't even notice the other theme used in the film because I guess I had just forgotten it. The one that you just sang.
Oh yeah,
and that one's also in this film, which is also really cool. I just didn't know. I didn't recognize it at the time. I was probably like, oh, this sounds kind of vaguely familiar, but I didn't like put two and two together that, oh, this is also a Godzilla theme. So yeah, I noticed that immediately. Like they're using the original theme for this attack. He attacks the city. He destroys. There's like at least 3 or 4 things that happen in that sequence that are direct homages to the original film, down to like the building he destroys, and there's like reporters trying to like document
the
it.
reporters on the roof were pretty sweet,
trying to document Godzilla in real time, and like the building they're standing on is being destroyed, that kind of thing. Then you get to see the first, I'm just going to call it the breath, but the lead up, and it's great.
The atomic pulse.
The atomic pulse. You get to see sort of the light traveling up his tail. In this movie, they do cool things where like all the spikes on his tail kind of like start popping out.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my gosh.
I love that so much. I have a hoodie on right now, but I have chills underneath.
Thinking about it.
Not because I'm cold. Yeah,
It's so cool.
Oh, dude.
And he has a lot of spikes in the design in this film. It's not just like one row of like a dorsal fin kind of a thing. There's like a width to the spikes, and there's like multiple spikes. So in the places where there's like multiple sets of spikes, they kind of like stick out when they pop out rather than just like straight up. They kind of go to the side a bit as well. It's almost like his entire like spine is inflating or something.
Yeah.
Like all the way from the tail all the way to snout. And then there's like this really cool moment where he like reaches his head, and then he's like, he points his head up, and he's like, you can see him sucking air in, and then there's like a moment of silence, and then he just releases. And of course, it's another nuke.
All of his dorsal fins slam back into his body and just... Oh, so great.
It is sick.
Absolutely.
I don't get tired of that particular scene. Of course, all of this is having an effect on our human story, and there's things going on there. You should watch the film and see it for yourself. Let's talk about the look of Godzilla, huh?
Dude, he's so cool.
Godzilla's digital in this film. Probably
not 100%.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, say what you mean by that.
I will send you a screenshot of a shot that I am like 100% certain is a suit shot that they did just to have it. Like they wanted the classic. Like I'll find it. It's a helicopter. It's when it's when Shikishima is flying his plane towards him in the final battle scene.
Okay.
It's like when as the final battle sequence begins, and he's trying to lure him out to sea. Right? And he flies the plane at him, and he's trying to like get him to, he flies it around him, and he chomps at him in the air.
So you think they built a suit and used it in a scene or two?
I think so. I'm gonna find it.
I'm gonna need a link.
Anyways, he is digital. Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty open.
Not the first digital Godzilla from Toho, but
no, but they created a model, like a suit looking kind of a model that they based the design on. So it's like a sort of a classic thing where you like build a physical model and then you either like scan or recreate that digitally. It's a way of like sort of transferring like an artist who deals in like physical sculpting to like someone who does digital sculpting. Okay. Sometimes they're the same person; they can do both, or sometimes you just have different kinds of people. You lean on people's individual strengths, but but the model can be used as a reference for like recreating it digitally. So when we get into trivia, we can talk about number of VFX shots in this film. It's like actually really notable, but I think it's mostly just Godzilla in this film that is digital, and really not much else. There's obviously some of that when he's destroying in the city, like that's inevitable. But man, I have a tangent about the VFX thing as well, like the is it VFX or is it not thing. We should talk about this at the end for our Patreon viewers. Anyways, just remind me if you can. I'll try and remember.
Okay.
It's such a tangent. Yeah, dude, the design is designed to look very similar to the suitmation of old. It looks like almost as if there's like a guy in a suit. Down to a lot of the movement, walking around, kind of stiff in places.
Mm-hmm.
So that aspect's done really well. It's like a really almost like if you laid down, you could almost believe it's like a dead coral reef, like that, or like maybe like what do they call volcanic rock? I forget what the term is. Doesn't matter. But like volcanic rock that's like at the ocean edge. You know, it's all like really pokey and sharp and like
lava,
it's been
lava rock or whatever they call it.
Yeah, igneous
like
maybe is the term.
stone or whatever. Yeah.
But it's been like
igneous.
worn away by the ocean and the water hitting it. And so it's been like sort of sharpened. It's like smooth in places, but it's also really pokey and spiky. That's kind of, it looks like he's made from igneous rock. Almost like he came out of a volcano or something. Really cool. Yeah, and then like there's
almost
some about
like he
his
came out of a volcano or something. I love that
title. That's great. What was I going to say?
His skin. The way it
oh, his
looks like
eyes. His eyes.
Yeah, dude.
Very, instead of like, there's a caveat to this that I have in my criticisms, but for the majority of the film, like when he's like giant and everything, like the shots where you like see his face or his eyes, the eyes are almost like they look dead. They almost look like fake eyes that were like on a suit. That they don't look like a real creature. It almost looks like a model, but it's like moving and breathing and stuff. Like it's not blinking. They're not lizard eyes. It's like some other thing. Honestly, it almost reminds me of, I want to say like the Neverending Story, or like some almost like back in the day when like Jim Henson or other people would do like puppetry, like a puppetry kind of a character. There's like kind of all comped together, or like human characters interacting with or riding on a giant character, but it's like actually a puppet, and it's like kind of combined together. That kind of a vibe. It's like almost kind of like this little uncanny thing.
Yeah,
like it looks how like something would be done in like the 80s with like puppets or something. But it's all like it's digital. They just like made it look that way.
Yeah.
And somehow that's like more realistic to me. Like it just looks more legit. I don't know. Yeah. Like the third act of this movie is all like this. I wrote down underdog Navy science warfare.
Yeah, how cool was that, man?
They're like cooking up like this sort of underdog, kooky science, like we're gonna pump gas into this thing, and then it's gonna like create bubbles, and then it's gonna make Godzilla sink, and like here's like a proof of concept.
Yeah,
it was literally like it looks like a science classroom.
Yeah, but it was so era appropriate. Like, oh man, so great.
Yeah, back in the day when, I don't know, you had to be like really practical with like experimentation and like just trying stuff out. All these raw materials. And everyone seemed to know what Freon was. I'm like, I don't know what Freon is. Like, but maybe back then, like, maybe there was more knowledge about the periodic table and doing sciencey things. I don't know. Nowadays you can just open Chat GPT and do this or that.
Yeah. Freon makes up
Give me a
the...
formula for blah 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 blah.
Freon is one of the compounds in the air that we breathe. It's like
Okay.
part of like oxygen, nitrogen, freon.
I don't know
It's all
anything
just kind
about
of
this, so
in the atmosphere.
I'll just have to believe you. Freon. Yeah, it's cool. It had, I don't know. I think it grounded the film, like kind of having like there's this scientific idea of how we think we might be able to damage Godzilla, and we're gonna try, and not just like this, they'll shoot guns at it and stuff. They sure they tried it, but they concluded pretty early that this is not the move. We need a different idea. We're not gonna like waste our. We don't need a bigger gun. We need a different approach. Like
Yeah.
title. Um,
But also, they didn't have a bigger gun.
that's true. Still, cool approach. This was throughout the film. Actually, maybe only two places, to be honest. When Godzilla is like approaching or he's near or something coming out of the ocean, they have all these dead deep sea fish floating up on the water. And I think it's implied that like his radioactivity is like killing fish as he like swims past them. And so they're like floating to the surface. And so similar to how like, you know, someone in a diving suit or like some giant creature, like maybe a whale or something, where like you might see like bubbles rising to the surface and you'd be like, oh, there's something down there. You might even see that in a creek with like a turtle or something. You'd be like, you see bubbles and you're like, I think there's probably a turtle down there. I remember like that as a kid or something.
Uh-huh.
This was like similar to that. And then it's like a grounded, like animalistic thing that you can show on screen that is believable. Like, oh, like these dead fish are probably being killed by Godzilla. It's also a very like helpful plot device and like an indicator that Godzilla is coming. But you're using that on screen to like show that the characters like have an early warning device. And in this case, they're just like seeing all these things floating on the surface. And they look kind of weird and like they're
all deep sea fish, right?
Yeah.
Like, just.
I saw some trivia items about that, which is it's kind of like based in like real stuff that happens with deep sea fish, like are brought up really rapidly in pressure, which is ironically kind of what they were trying to do to him. It's like the opposite, but it's poetic. That was a cool warning measure to like implement in the film as like a way of telling the characters and more importantly the audience that he's coming. Like we know he's coming now. Better be ready. That was sick. The tugboat brigade.
Yeah, the kid.
Yeah, the younger dude, and like all these tugboats showed up, and they're trying to like pull up Godzilla because he's like fighting against them with like these ropes and stuff that are tied down there. And the ships aren't strong enough to like pull them up, so they have like these tugboats pulling the ships, and it's like this whole like yin yang thing where they're pulling in opposite directions, and there's like sort of this top down shot of like this little array of tugboats helping out. That's cool.
In yo, man, not yin yang. In yo, get it right.
Okay.
We'll cut that out. Sorry.
Sorry, I had a cheeseburger earlier. So I had to add the bang bang on top.
Bang bang.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The ending of this film. I just wrote down redemption! Exclamation point. Redemption of a character. Arguably redemption of the other guy who helped him fix up the plane that he was flying. Our main character. Yeah, I mean, we already said spoiler alert, but it seems like he's going to die. He does not die. And there's an actual kind of happy ending. Maybe like some bittersweet elements, but ultimately like he arrives at like a happy ending. And it's not really what I expected. They certainly weren't leading to that.
Mm-hmm.
but we get an unexpected happy ending. And some really great lines. You should watch the movie. I'm not going to say them, but it's a beautiful ending.
It's a really great ending.
I also wrote down. Oh, I wrote down the VFX was indeed masterful. Oh, if we didn't mention it, this, well, we can get into it, but this movie won an Oscar, the American Oscars, for best visual effects. Very, very significant for a lot of reasons.
For a lot of
Um,
reasons.
Before I finish that thought, I wrote down Akiko. This was like the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I wrote down she's the cutest child of all time. Literally,
Seriously,
she has a couple
she's
lines in the
so
movie.
cute.
I'm like, oh my god, she's
Like,
freaking
I have the
adorable.
cutest daughter in the world, but Akiko is
Second,
the cutest. Yeah. Well, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this
She's so
movie
cute.
won an Oscar. Very significant. Um, so the last, I guess from an Oscar nomenclature terminology, the last foreign film, we could say international film, to win an Oscar for a category other than Best Foreign Film, which is an actual Oscar category, was, I believe, Parasite in 2019, which
Huh.
is, if you haven't seen Parasite, dude, get on it.
I haven't. Okay.
Parasite is a South Korean movie. It won Best Picture. It didn't win Best Foreign Film. It won Best
No.
Picture.
One
South Korean
best
movie.
picture.
Yes.
Wow.
And yeah, their acceptance speech for that movie was like really cool. I don't remember anything they said except they had written down this thing, which was, it was a quote that was passed around, but they ended their speech with this line that said approximately something along the lines of, once you get over the barrier of the 1 inch tall layer of subtitles at the bottom of the screen, you will be exposed to so many more great films. Beautiful quote.
That's great. That's great.
And yeah, it was a good call to action for, I guess, the American moviegoer who has some issue with subtitles. You get over it in like 60 seconds, I promise you. There's so many great
You
foreign
really
films.
do.
And I know this from experience. Last year, I embarked on a journey to like watch a bunch of highly rated movies from other countries. And so I only made a den of like maybe 20 or 30 movies from like the list I was looking at, but watched a bunch of movies, some Spanish, German, Portuguese, Japanese, like all kinds of, and it's just like at some point, like, I don't know what they're saying, but the subtitles are there and they could be speaking any language. It kind of levels the playing field. Like, oh, this is a great film and I know what they're saying, and that's all that really matters. Like, the story's being told.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really cool to see this win. I guess I didn't really realize it, but I don't think any Godzilla movie has ever won an award like this. And the fact that this was like the 70-year anniversary was like kind of poetic. It's really cool. I sort of like, I don't like watch the Oscars every year, but I like the furthest I'll go is I'll like find like a live winner list. Like when it's broadcasting, I'll like refresh it occasionally the night that it's happening and just kind of keep an eye out, like, who won this category? Sometimes I'll have seen some of the movies on the list and I'll like make predictions about who I think is going to win. It's kind of fun. But so I didn't really know anything about this film at the time, but I saw they won best VFX, and like I was watching like the acceptance speeches on YouTube like the next day or something. And I remember seeing like the acceptance speech for this movie, but I didn't click on it. I was like, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna wait till I've seen the movie, and then I'm gonna watch the acceptance speech. I'm glad I did. They didn't like give anything away or anything. I just wanted to be like kind of better safe than sorry. But I don't know if you've seen it, Caleb, but it's worth pulling up. They wrote an acceptance speech. That I believe it was the director. I don't know if they were expecting the win or not, but They went up there, and this guy does not speak English, but he wrote a speech in English, and wrap it up, music be damned. He finished what he had to say. He tried his very hardest, and he got it out. And I don't know. I was just proud of them for. I mean, it's got to be so weird to be like in another country at an award show in a language you don't know very well. You know, maybe you understand it better than you speak it, and then you win, and you're like, you have to go in front of all these people, and like, wow, give a speech in English. he's literally he's holding this paper and he's like sounding out the words. It's like that takes balls, you know, to do that.
It does.
So, hats off to those guys. I also saw this is another tangent. They were all wearing like these. Some kind of like special shoes, not like high heels, but they were wearing like these. I remember seeing like photos, like they were all wearing like these high heeled or like platformy kind of shoes, like all of the. I don't know. I never understood what that reference was. I thought maybe you might know something about it, but I'll have to look it up, huh? I need to send you this photo. I now understand. So they're wearing like sort of high-heeled platform shoes, the whole team, and the heel is made of a Godzilla claw.
Oh, so that's cool, amazing.
Dude. So cool. High fashion. Oh my gosh. We'll have to tighten this up in the editing. Come on, Finder. Wow. Do you want to talk about things you like?
I mean,
before I don't have too many criticisms, but
yeah, no, let's do it. I think the things that still continue to stand out to me and the things that I'm still thinking about with this movie, which is why I knew it was a really great movie. Not just a really great Godzilla movie, but a really great movie, was that I was like thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah, that's a really good quote, actually. Not just like, yeah, it's not just like a great Godzilla movie. It is a great movie.
Yeah.
Title. Yeah. This is great movie. So I don't know if you made this connection or not, but I made it after I watched it the first time. Godzilla is not only a like Toho is always like, he's always been a representation of nuclear testing, and obviously they carried that theme here, right? But I think that was more just to like, the nuclear testing was not so much a commentary, a social commentary anymore, as much as just a way to like help move that part of the plot forward. The real commentary here was the fallout after World War II of this dude of Shikishima just kind of being broken and haunted by his failure as a kamikaze, his failure to prevent all of the darkness and destruction that kind of happened to Japan and to all these people that he loved. And that Godzilla is a manifestation of that. And that's why he feels so much that he has to stop him, is the way that I took it. Is they kind of like, they literally made, it's like, this is his demon. This is his like thing that he has to reckon with. And it's literally tied for him, for Shikishima, it's literally tied to, like you said, he's got all this PTSD about like feeling bad about, or just the whole incident with Godzilla on the island. But like, you know, there are, the couple times in the movie where they like, he goes to like fire a gun or something and he starts like shaking and he can't do it. And like, that's what kind of made him want to like not do the whole kamikaze thing to begin with.
Yeah, I just the the parts that stuck out, like, so they he's like my war isn't over, my battle isn't over. That's kind of a theme throughout the movie for sure, where he is just like, I know that I have these things that I'm working, like, but I just need to work through them, and I have to. It's, for him, it comes to a point where he has to like face them in this big ugly way.
Yeah. I
And I
noticed
think that
something.
hit
Sorry, finish your thought, but I want to
I
come
think
back
that
to
hit
it.
home so well for me, because that's kind of like some things I've been dealing with a lot recently.
Hmm.
Having a kid made me face a lot of things that I've never had to face before,
Hmm.
about the way I was raised, the choices that I've made, um, the way that I think about myself. Like, my my daughter has made me be nicer to myself. And so, like, this kind of, but
Hmm.
like watching Shikshima's like struggle through, like, I don't deserve to be here, I should be dead, like, just all feelings that I am very, very familiar with.
Hmm.
And I've never even been to war, but like, well, not that kind of war, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah, it
but
was
you
it was a
relate.
human it was a human story that I think probably a lot of people can relate to. But yeah, I don't know, just a really good it was a really good, like you said, there was like abject horror from the appearance of Godzilla, and you see that a couple times in the film. On Oda Island is the first time. That scene where they what do they do? They like shoot a bunch of like tanks at him, or like whatever, and there's just like a big explosion, and everybody stops and looks, and then he just like comes through the smoke, right? And you just see his head come through the smoke, and they cut back to everybody, and there's just that like paused and then turn panic, people screaming, whatever. There's terror. There's just like, you can see all the feelings of like hopelessness, and just like all of this, like, it really is a really good representation of minus one, of they've
Hmm.
got nothing, and now they've got to,
Less
like
than
you said,
nothing.
now they've got to deal with this. They've got less than that. They've
Hmm.
literally just had everything taken away from them because of choices that their government made, in the name of honor. And there are people who don't feel like that is the, like, there's the guy that says that to him on the island on Oda, after they say like, hey, we didn't find anything wrong with your plane at the beginning of the film. Like, that guy comes
Hmm.
to him and says like, I'm on your side. I think we need more people like you, who aren't just going to go die because people tell us to go die. Like, who aren't just going to go into this thing, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I really loved that. Dude, yeah, the atomic pulse, and just like you said, Godzilla is only in this film for 9% of it, and it it's the perfect amount. I think every time he's on screen, you're just like holding on to your seat. What's about to happen? And
Yeah.
yeah, the final scene with them, like, circling the boats around him, and then they do that and just like dragging him down. And that scene where they get him down, way down to the bottom of that trench, and then you see his eyes just like, it's like whatever happens, just like he just shuts off. I love that, like, shunk. And
Yep.
then
I
they're like,
like
all right, bring
goes
him back
quiet,
up.
goes
Like,
silent,
yeah, yeah,
goes dark. Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder
What
if you
else?
I I'm fact checking something with you, and if I'm correct, I'm wondering if you noticed it. I remember him. I believe it was at the table in the restaurant. He's meeting with the guys, and they're talking strategy or something. There's a moment where he's questioned on like why he never like married that girl or whatever or something, and he says like, is like, my battle isn't over, or my war isn't over, or something like that. Pretty
Hmm.
sure that's where he says it, right?
Yeah, that's one of the times that he says it. Yeah.
I thought that was the only time that he said it. I was trying to keep watch the second time that I saw it
I think
because
this. Well, so there's that, and
because
then I'm pretty
she
sure he
says
says
that
it
to
again.
him at the
She says
end.
that at the end, right?
But I found myself thinking, did he ever say that phrase to her? I don't think he did. Which,
I
if
don't think he did
true,
either.
is even cooler because she understood sort of intrinsically what he was going through and happened to use that exact same verbiage to him at the end of the film,
Yeah, yeah. I don't
using a
believe he
line
ever
that
said that to
came out of
her.
his mouth earlier in the film, but not to her.
Yeah, because she had already been. She was gone at that point.
Right. So I thought that was like super poetic. She just happened to use
Yeah,
the same language that he did, but not
yeah,
because she was referencing something he said to her. It was just the same concept. I liked that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
It
I was
was.
pretty sure I was correct in that the second time I watched it because I was looking for it the second time to see
Yeah,
if he said anything to her using that verbiage. But yeah, good stuff.
yeah. It's just. It's. I don't know. It's a I don't want to use the word beautiful, but it's a great movie. It's a really great story. It's a touching and moving story, and like Sam watched it with me, and she like we got to the end. She was like, "I'm gonna cry at a Godzilla movie." Like,
Nice.
yeah, and I love that they didn't like they left the door open for a little more. There's like that. That wasn't just like a we're gonna have
Classic
to
tease.
exactly a little tease at the end.
Heart still beating.
What did you think about the way that they ended up ending him that way, or like because of the like Shikishima he flew the plane into his mouth,
Hmm.
and then they just blow his head off,
Yep. It just explodes, and
and then
then
like all the
but it doesn't like his body just doesn't just like immediately fall or sink into the sea. It's almost like it's kind of frozen in place, and then it like kind of like kind of like slips into pieces. You get to see sort of like this light peeking through, and it like
yeah, it's
sloughs
like it's
off into like chunks.
yeah, it's like it's crumbling like sand or something,
Hmm.
like you'd
Yeah,
watch a sandcastle fall or something,
I
and
mean
but then
VFX
there's
wise, I'm certain that was like the simulation they use was like using material like basically rebuild the shape, but out of like sand or some other material that behaves that way,
kinetic sand
and
or
then just
yeah,
let gravity take over in like the VFX simulation. Like it was a really
yeah.
cool effect. Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
I
It
think this is
honestly
a good
reminded
spot
me
to.
of did you ever see any of the Resident Evil movies?
No, I haven't.
There's a pretty famous scene in the first one where like this dude gets sliced by lasers. Basically his body into a bunch of chunks. You like see like the lasers, like it's like a grid of lasers, and it goes towards him, and then it just starts spinning, and it goes straight through his body, uh, like some kind of kitchen device that would cube cheese.
Yeah,
And you can see like these small lines, the cut marks, and then literally like this, just like the cubes, his body just like they just slide into a pile. And it just collapses like a chunk. It's a bunch of that's it honestly looked a little bit like that, but just like
that sounds amazing.
not flesh chunks, but falling sand, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't think that was sick.
yeah. I thought I just it's well done. It was very well
It's
considered. It
great.
was very well thought out. Like from Toho. Like what a film from Toho. Like
Hmm. They've
big
had some
big
other
ups.
bangers, but not in a long
Big
time.
ups.
Maybe
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
way. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of things that I didn't like, but I'd be happy to list them now.
Yeah. Go for it. I'm reading them right now
Um,
and I agree. I do read them out loud, but like
yeah.
I agree with you.
So when we first see Godzilla on the island, um, the first time he came on screen, I was like, "Oh, hope he doesn't look like that the whole film." It actually reminded me a little bit of '98 Godzilla, where he basically was like a dinosaur or some kind of T-Rex looking thing. The whole movie didn't really look like Godzilla; just kind of looked like a dinosaur. It was like Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park mode.
which we'll get there. This is not the first time that Toho has done this to Godzilla in this way, where he's got a like
Yeah.
pre nuclear bomb form that we see.
So yeah, when he first shows up, he is looking very dinosaur like, I would say, and I didn't really object to that as much. Although the way they did like his face and his head, it was like kind of like the classic T-Rex eye kind of effect, which was completely revisited later, and I think looked really cool. I don't know what that could have looked like differently, scaled down like the smaller version. I think they could have done something different. It just looked too much like a T-Rex to me. Not literally a T-Rex, but it looked like a dinosaur. It didn't look like Godzilla, and I can't put my finger on what the difference is.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I have written
There is
down
one.
here, it's kind of the movement in that scene that killed it for me. So he moved like a dinosaur. He didn't move like Godzilla is supposed to move, ideally, which is like sort of like a human in a suit who's kind of stiff and can't really like necessarily flex all the axes perfectly. Might have a very like prehensile tail and the way the tail is used, but ultimately like, neck to feet is not a fast mover, like kind of slow and heavy kind of a vibe. And I get if you make it smaller, he might be able to move a little faster, but there were some pretty swift and jerky movements, much like, a raptor might have, a dinosaur raptor.
So I'm having a thought as you're saying this.
My point is less that I didn't like it or thought the style wasn't right, and more that it made my brain go, oh yeah, this is CG. It took me out of the movie in a way where I don't want to think it's CG. I want to think it's a guy in a suit. And they succeeded for most of the film in that way, but the opening scene, I was like, oh yeah, this is for sure CG.
I'm having this is like as if this were real and it made any kind of like actual sense via nature. Yeah. Thought here that dinosaurs would like that was it felt like Jurassic Park a little bit, the movement, like you said, like a raptor, or like when somebody, like the moments where he grabs somebody in his mouth and like whips them away. I thought that was so cool. First of all, it was
really cool, but it didn't feel like the rest of the movie. It was very different,
right? But I wonder if that was intentional, to even like, not intentional, but if it is almost like the nuclear testing not only made him like bigger and more swole, but there is now this like,
I think that was their intention,
to move fast. Like he is just like, he's tore up from the floor up, and is pissed about it, kind of thing. So
yeah, I think they wanted to really highlight time jump, changes in his makeup, the effects of testing. I think they were trying to really surprise the audience with, if it's a before and after, what the after really is.
Yeah.
But I still think it could have been different. I'm not sure what, but it was like,
yeah, it still is just a little,
like the fine motor skills of the movement was too much. Like you could have done like the same like action blocking of how that scene plays out and still like make it to where like, 10 and 2, like kind of keep them in the same place. I don't know. It's, again, fine motor skills. It's like the small muscle movements that feel like jittery and quick and very, very responsive. I think it should be more like a delayed reaction kind of a thing. I think that would have sold it better. But, it wasn't like bad.
no.
I just think it would have sold the performance the actors were giving of terror better. And that's just because we've seen so many dinosaur movies that we're not scared of dinosaurs anymore, and we think they're cool.
Yeah.
We're just, it's just such a pop culture thing. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, there's a montage early in the film that's like a time jump transition, and montage as like a film metric is like as old as time, and it's like a great way to show progression of time and kind of move from one like this year to like several
Just
years
show that
later.
exactly. There's just a large
Not
chunk of
bad,
time passing.
but they
You're
put
not
this
missing any
music track
story
in it.
wise, but we just want you to let you know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
and that was
oh
fine.
yeah.
It was the music.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
was like, this is an anime track. I'm like, I understand that this is a Japanese film, but it didn't match the vibe of the rest of the film. It was kind of like this new age guitar thing. It felt
Yeah.
like it would be literally like a montage in an anime film or an anime series.
Yeah. It felt
It just
very, yeah.
didn't match to me. It was like,
Nope.
and like genre wise, like very very new age
Somebody
guitar, kind of
really liked that song and was just
cheesy.
like, yeah.
Yeah, someone put down their foot on that song and won out. I don't think it was the move. It's the only thing in the movie I think that doesn't match the rest of the movie. It stood out like a sore
Yep.
thumb to me. So, and then also, I mean, when they do kind of like I wrote down Pacific Atoll, but that might not actually be it. But the nuclear testing sort of
Yeah. And
news
Bikini
bit.
Atoll is what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, beginning Atoll. Yeah, but basically like a little newsy sort of montage, sort of saying, hey, like this nuclear testing has taken place. And then they kind of show the shot of Godzilla under the water, whatever. It's like their way of saying, hey, this thing happened and that's going to be important later. Transitionally, it was not smooth. They almost
Yeah.
cut, almost like cut to black and cut out all the music and then just kind of went into this bit and then came back from it. It felt, I don't know if like they added it later or didn't originally had it in the script, or like it felt almost like an insertion later or something. Like
Yeah.
it
Was
wasn't blended well. It
very,
didn't feel
yeah.
smooth. It was almost like a sticky note. And we're like, oh yeah, you need to know about this. Moving on, and then back to the movie now. So yeah, that didn't feel great. So yeah, it's really all the criticism I have. Then I watched it again, black and white.
In
Have
black
you
and
seen it in
white.
black and white? I mean, you saw it in the theater in black and white, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
Twice
you
in
saw it.
theaters and now once at home since it came out.
That's great. So not only did I rewatch it in black and white, I was I've been working sort of like some freelance video at this place an hour south of where I live, and I brought up this film that I just watched to one of the guys at the place who he watches a lot of movies. Maybe not a lot, but more than other people who work there. And so sometimes, I'd like whatever. I brought it up, and he said he'd seen the movie and whatever. He gave his comments on it. He threw out this idea because I mentioned the original film. I was like, "Oh, you should watch the original movie. It's really cool." He hadn't seen it, and he was like, "What'd be really cool is like rewatch the original 1954 movie and then watch this movie directly after because it's sort of like so homage." And like he hadn't even seen the movie, and this was his idea, and I was like, "Dude, that's a great idea." So I totally did that. I rewatched the original Godzilla movie, 1954, and then rewatched this, but in black and white, back to back. And oh my gosh, you really make connections of like things that they're sort of repeating or are doing an homage to. Really, really cool in black and white. I wrote down, maybe it's the costumes of the time period, because like once you remove color, like the actual like design of the costume stands out more than the color, like the actual like design of them. But the sort of the high contrast color grading they did matches the original movie very well. Like they emulated it very well. It kind of looks, a lot of the scenes look like the scenes do in the original movie. So that was really well done. I mean, the VFX in the movie are great objectively. Once you take out the color, though, Godzilla really starts to look like a guy in a suit. Like it kind of takes like the last bits of suspense of disbelief out of the equation. Like there's just like less things to make it stand out from the scene it's in, and it just kind of like feels like it belongs there. And makes it look even more like it looks like the original suit in the original movie. The design is not like totally the same, but it looks more similar in black and white, just because you're removing other things that help you tell them apart. Really, um, yeah, I think it's better in black and white. The whole time I was watching it, I was like, oh man, I would love to like recut this movie myself and make it look like the original, which will probably never be possible. I was thinking it would be really cool to see it in like a 4:3 aspect ratio, like the original,
Uh-huh.
um, rather than like the widescreen format. I think it would sell the black and white even better and make it look like a 1950s movie even more so.
Hmm.
That's only possible if they ever release an open matte version of the movie, which
Yeah.
is pretty slim to none. It's rare that that happens. An open matte, for people who don't know, it basically means when you watch a movie, it's widescreen. It doesn't the I think it's the anamorphic films, but there's lots of other aspect ratios. But when you watch a movie and there's like a black bar on the top and bottom of your screen, um, it's because that part of the frame has been what's called matted out. There's a matte, um, MATTE.
Hmm.
There's like limiting your view to just sort of like the widescreen strip. And an open matte is when they basically you see the whole frame, full 16:9 aspect ratio frame. That's something you really only see for movies that have IMAX shots in them, because not only is IMAX a much higher resolution, and so they use it. Usually, the IMAX shots are like really like kind of big scale shots or something from a distance where you can really make use of that vertical real estate. But sometimes when a movie has IMAX shots in it, it'll be mix and match. Like the IMAX shots will be full frame. You'll see the full frame, and then the other shots in the movie will like have the black bars on the top and bottom. But sometimes they'll do like a Blu-ray release or something that's like an open matte release, that basically has all of the shots filling the entire frame. And for video editing purposes, that would allow you to sort of crop in the sides to a 4:3 aspect ratio a lot easier.
Mm.
And that would be a fun
Nice.
project.
Yeah.
If they ever released that, I would totally do it. I would like add like some grain and like some camera shake and some of that little jittery stuff that you see with like old black and white movies on film. That would be really cool. Yeah, loved it. Also, sort of wrote down some homage moments that I noticed between the original and this movie. There's a moment in the original and in this movie where Godzilla picks up a train car with his mouth. He's kind of like shaking it around and he drops it. You see that in the original. You see that in this one. You see, as we mentioned, the news guys on the roof. I think two of the buildings in that scene that are destroyed are maybe by name, like same buildings that are destroyed in the original. I don't know them by name. I just noticed it in the trivia. That would be, you'd have to know a lot to notice that, probably.
That's cool.
I'm not that guy. After the city destruction scene, there is sort of like a radio bulletin news. They're kind of like showing aftermath footage, and then there's like sort of a radio announcer describing, like you would see on the news, describing what happened and what's going on. That was straight out of the original. They did that in both movies. Yeah, there's a nightmare that we see of our main character where it's like he's back on Oda Island and you like hear stomping or something and he like gets up and runs out the front door and it's sort of like his PTSD kicking in. The look of that scene and everything looks very much like the island footage in the original film, where it's sort of like a hurricane that they later decide that maybe this wasn't a hurricane or a typhoon or whatever it was. We saw these giant tracks. It really looked a lot like that scene, sort of like the Japanese style house, and then guy like running out the front door. And also this time around, because I watched them back to back, I noticed, oh, there's two Godzilla themes. I mean, I'm sure there's other ones too, but there's kind of like two themes that were used directly in this film, that were both from the original, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one we previously mentioned, and then there's like the battle theme, which is like. I'll stop singing. No one wants to hear that. So that was really cool. Try to figure out on the piano and stuff. That's all of my thoughts.
Sweet.
Yeah. Trivia?
Trivia, maybe a little bit. We're at an hour and a half already.
I know. Have to pick and choose, really.
I'm gonna start off here with some trivia. I think I kind of said something where it was like Godzilla is a representation of Shikshima's like feelings, or kind of like just like a representation of the battle that he's trying to have. Apparently that was an intention. That's just, I'm reading this kind of like interview. What does it mean to be a kaiju film? What's the driving purpose behind kaiju cinema? And Takashi Yamazaki, the director, said it's a rather Japanese view of things, but there's a thing in Japanese religion of giving shape to various concerns and problems. The process of making a kaiju film is kind of like a kagura, a dance to please and calm the gods, where you place these problems into the shape of a kaiju to help process some of these worries, almost like a ceremony. So, like, I guess that's a really cool way to show that that's what Godzilla's kind of been always. The kaiju is something that you're like making this imagery of a monster to represent your fears and anxieties.
Huh.
And so Godzilla is literally
very symbolic.
Yeah, is literally supposed to be like Shikshima's, all of his stuff, like born.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to touch on box office as well, which I have up here. This was a mind-blowing thing for me. The budget of this movie was $15 million. That's it.
I've heard less. I've heard 10 to 12. So the numbers are like, but yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, over here in the US, like they got 11 million out of just us for 2 limited runs. That's pretty good. And it made 115 worldwide.
Yeah. Yep.
The significance of those numbers to me is not so much it's a low budget, but also like there wasn't that many VFX shots compared to a lot of movies of this caliber.
Best
I know
VFX.
And literally, there's trivia
sub $20
items
million
in here.
budget movie.
There's trivia items in here which I won't even like read about like what software they use and stuff. It's like stuff that VFX people on YouTube that I watch are like using. Like they're, like anybody could do this. It's a team of like 16 people, and they did it in like 8 weeks. All the shots. There were only like 600 VFX shots in this movie. I think I don't have a comparison point, but some other movie they were comparing to in the trivia point, it was like probably 2,700 shots, VFX shots. That's common for like all the MonsterVerse movies we was watching. There's probably 2,000 to 3,000 VFX shots. There were only 600 in this movie. Yeah. So I don't know if they had a guy in a suit at any point, but I think it's pretty much just Godzilla that was VFX, and then some of that building stuff, which I think they showed like some clips of when they won the Oscar. But a couple trivia items. The roar in this movie is sort of a curious sound. I was listening closely to it. I'm like, sort of sounds similar to the original. Apparently they didn't create a new one. They just played the 1954 roar over giant loudspeakers and like recorded what that sounded like in a room. Literally just like turn it up to 11, put a mic in the room, just let it overdrive probably, and then just like record it.
Yeah.
So I think what you're hearing is like the reverb of that room with the loudspeakers. It's kind of metal, honestly. I love
So
it.
great.
Oh, there are so many good trivia items. We probably shouldn't go too much longer. Yeah, there's a lot of items in here referencing earlier Godzilla films that this movie pulled from or referenced, or like musical things that happened, movies that we haven't watched yet on this podcast, but that you have seen. I saw at least like 5 trivia items referencing the 2001 All Out Monsters Attack movie, which we'll get to at some point, I'm sure. Some things were pulled there, musical themes for one, some other stuff. I'm like trying to like summarize here. There's some items here that talk about the success of Shin Godzilla, which we will see in a long time.
Dude, no,
but-
I've literally been thinking about it for the last 10 minutes. I really want to set you loose on
Yeah.
Shin Godzilla now. I think you would get it. Oh, man.
I don't mind waiting. But there's a lot of items here referencing basically like the success of that film, like created a lot of pressure for like, wow, how are we gonna top this, you know? And so yeah, they were trying to figure out what the story would be in this movie. I guess it wasn't until they decided it was going to be a period piece that it kind of like fell into place, where they were like, oh, okay, this is how we like knock it out of the park with an original story. Yeah, we already mentioned that this movie came out 70th anniversary of Godzilla, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So super historic. I was looking at the cast. A couple of people in the cast. The main character, he was in, I think, multiple Miyazaki movies as a voice. Thought that was interesting. Yeah. Spirited Away, and also, what was the other one? You can look it up. Spielberg said a lot of great things about this movie, and they were really happy to hear that. Yeah, a lot of great feedback from American directors and actors and stuff on this film. First Japanese film and first Asian film to be nominated and win Best VFX at the Oscars. Which is pretty significant, because typically the Oscars are very like American focused. Yeah, there's small things like, you know, the destroyers, the giant ships at the end. Their names are like painted on the ships in like capitalized Latin script rather than like the Japanese script, which I guess is not typical.
Yeah.
Normally you'd see Japanese characters on ships, things like that. But.
Yeah. I just know. Yeah. Huh. I never noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an item here arguing about what the budget really was, so maybe you're right. Supposedly 1.5 billion yen. But, you know, the exchange rates change all the time, so.
Yeah, so.
Who knows? Ugh. So many good things. 35 people worked on this movie.
You're joking. 35. That's it.
Yeah, they could just be talking about VFX. I'll just read it verbatim. You decide what you think it means. There were 35 people who worked on this movie, creating 610 shots in just 8 months at Chovu Studio under the supervision of Yamazaki. That's the director, I believe, and Kiyoki Shibuya, who I think is the VFX guy. Could be wrong.
No, you're right.
Oh, that's VFX. 35 artists completed the film with only 610 VFX shots. For comparison, Avengers Endgame used 2,500 VFX shots and a budget of $365 million. Yeah, this is not to say that you just need less VFX in your movie. It means writing a film that doesn't require as much VFX
is possible.
And that just reminded me of my tangent that I'm going to talk about at the end. Yeah. So many good things. Yeah, really only good things. Another reference to the 2001 All Monsters Attack movie, which makes me want to watch that. So yeah.
So there it
Any
is.
other? That's it. If you haven't watched the movie yet, I'm sorry.
Let's wrap it up with letterbox scores or whatever we did.
Oh,
I gave it a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5.
It's
I love
9
it
for
very
me.
much.
9 out of 10. Great film. It's rare that I give a movie that I have a rating, honestly. Yeah. Really great.
That's impressive. Okay, I said I wanted to wrap up with that, but let's have a discussion about, not a discussion, just like 2 minutes about Shin Godzilla. Let's think this out here.
Whether we're going to watch
Where do
it.
we want to go from here? What's our next movie? What do we want to?
That is a good question.
Let's pontificate.
Is this a part of the episode, or are we just?
This is part of the Patreon.
What do we think? Hi, Patreon. You could put a poll on the Patreon.
Yeah, except for
and then we'll decide anyways. If you see a poll on the Patreon, it's because you recently subscribed between when we recorded this and when it became available on Patreon,
which I doubt.
Which is doubtful, but it's there. It's an option. If we went back to, it would be what, the 70s? The next movie would be what?
1955, Godzilla Raids Again.
Ah, yes. Back to the 50s then, potentially. Listen, I'm a patient man. You've seen it probably 50 times by now.
Yeah, Shin Godzilla it still continues to be my favorite Godzilla movie, even with minus one.
So we could go back to the sequel to the original movie.
55. Yep.
Which appears to feature Anguirus.
Anguirus, yep.
I'm going to say it Anguirus the whole time just to piss you off.
That's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Well, hey,
I'm fine going back to the 50s.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Next movie, 1955, Godzilla Raids Again.
Boom. Lock it in.
The director, last name Oda.
Last name Oda?
Oda Island.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to go on my tangent, and then we should stop recording and go to sleep.
Moriyoshi. Yeah, go for it. Konnichiwa.
Okay, this tangent is about a trend. I'm sending you a video about it, and I'm going to say the video out loud in case you're on Patreon and you want to look it up. It is from a YouTube channel called The Movie Rabbit Hole. And the title of the video is No CGI is really just invisible CGI. Those are my rants. You should look up those topics if you want to care about those things like me. So, Skyfall is still, I think, the best Bond movie.
I'm sorry, Adele. Our apologies to Adele. Title.
We better not use that.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you for watching. Again, patreon.com/theoneaboutgodzilla movies. $5 a month to see Brian's tangent about VFX and some other tangents that have been cut out because I do my job.
And if your life is busy enough that you had to watch this episode in 10 segments to fit it into your life, we applaud your
I appreciate
commitment.
you so much.
We love you, and we're glad that you like this movie enough to listen to two guys talk about it for an hour and 50 minutes or so.
And with that, we'll see you on the next one for Godzilla Raids Again, 1955.
Boom.
Peace, love, and cheeseburger bang bang America.
Back
Vote for
to black and
me.
white, baby.